Okay, y'all, so today we have a crazy long story time. Like, there is a lot of baggage to unpack in this story, okay? So y'all already know what time it is. Grab that basket of laundry or baskets, go over to that sink that I know is overflowing with dishes, or grab that homework which I know is due on Monday. And let's get to this hot ass tea that I'm about to spill. Please try to keep up. Okay? Okay. Story time about how my sister caught me doing it with her man. So a little background information. I was 19 years old and a freshman in college whenever this whole situation happened. But for y'all to understand everything, we have to start back at the very beginning. And I'm talking about like back before I was even a thought in my parents' head. So back whenever my dad was in high school, he had started dating this girl who we're gonna call Luna. Now Luna and my dad were high school sweethearts. They started dating in their freshman year and they had been together all the way up until their senior year of high school. Apparently their relationship was amazing. Like, my dad loved this woman to the moon and back, and apparently he wouldn't even look in another woman's direction. But I guess it was mainly because of all the shit that they had been through together growing up. So now that I think about it, maybe my dad actually didn't love her and this was just a trauma bond. We're gonna call it a trauma bond. Anyway, so yeah, they had been through a lot of things together, and no, I am not talking about the bullshit where it's like, oh my god, we've been through so much together. Meanwhile, everything they quote been through together was him cheating on her 24/7 and her taking him back every time. No, not that. Because I swear to god, whenever men say, oh my god, I've been through a lot with her, like, they're really just talking about the fact that they've cheated on her a million times and she's took them back through everything. Like, y'all haven't been through a lot. She's been through a lot. Be for real. Be so for real. Anyways, pretty much both of their families grew up super poor, and they had actually lived together from the time that they were 6 years old to whenever they were 13. But during that time, they both had to deal with their moms being on drugs and a bunch of other things like the abusive men that their mothers would bring into the house and stuff like that. Just a lot of effed up shit. Eventually though, my grandma ended up taking my dad in, and Luna's mom sadly passed away due to an overdose. Well, I guess Luna's only choices after that were to either move back to her home country with her dad, or she could move in with her older sister. Obviously, she didn't want to move back to her home country, so she decided to move in with her sister and her sister's boyfriend, which pretty much gave her all the freedom in the world, because obviously her sister and her sister's boyfriend were still kids themselves, so they did not give a flying what she did, which led to Luna getting pregnant by my dad. Well, because Luna got pregnant, her dad forced her to move back to her home country with him because he knew that, one, Luna couldn't take care of a child, and two, Luna's older sister could barely take care of Luna, so she was definitely not going to be able to handle another child. So yeah, Luna moves back to her home country in October of her and my dad's senior year in high school, and my dad had no clue that she was pregnant because I guess originally Luna thought that she could trust her sister to keep a secret, aka the secret being that she was pregnant. But obviously that wasn't the case, and that same day that she told her sister, she was on a flight back to her home country. So like I said, my dad had no clue that Luna was pregnant. So, you know, my dad is heartbroken, he's confused, he has no idea what the hell just happened. And when he went and tried to talk to Luna's sister, Luna's older sister was like, listen, I'm not supposed to talk to you, and you're never allowed to see my sister ever again. And obviously my dad had basically been in a relationship his whole adolescent life, so he didn't know what the hell to do with himself now. So like any guy that gets out of a long-term relationship, he decides that he's gonna go crazy. And when I say crazy, I mean he fucked everything that walked, and he drank and smoked and did all that shit for the first time. And because my dad and Luna's mom were addicts, they tended to stay away from alcohol or any drugs because they did not want to follow in their footsteps. Anyways, so not long after Luna left, my dad had started dating my mom, Christina, and my dad and Christina met whenever they both were in their freshman year of high school. Like, they've always been in the same classes, but they were what you call acquaintance friends. Like, the only time they would talk was whenever they were in class, and that was it. Well, when my dad got into his partying phase, it just so happened the group of kids that he would go out with, my mom was a part of that group of kids as well. So they were always going out, drinking together, partying, all that good shit. And a little background information on my mom. She came from an extremely wealthy family. I'm talking, my grandparents bought her a car as soon as she turned 16, and they bought her 3 more cars within the same year because she had wrecked the first one that she got. They went on at least 3 vacations a year. Like, she really had it like that. Anyway, so they start dating in December of their senior year in high school, which is crazy because I don't know about y'all, but you would think that my dad would have taken a longer time to get over Luna and like want to heal, which later on in life he told me that he actually never really got over her. He just became okay with living without her. And the only reason why he started dating my mom so quick was because he was used to being in a relationship. He didn't really like the party scene like that. Like, the only reason why he was going out and smoking and drinking was because, one, it's what he thought that he had to do as a teenager, and two, it was the only way that he knew how to pass time and not really think about his and Luna's situation. But I guess that whole time he really wanted to be in a relationship with someone at least. He did not like being single. Ugh, I can relate. I'm a relationship type of girl. I am not for the streets. Anyways, my mom wanted a relationship as well, and the only reason why she was out partying was because she didn't enjoy anything else in her life. So in a way, my dad and her were kind of perfect for each other. grandfather. Anyway, so fast forward to the end of their senior year in high school. My mom had no plans of going to college because she already had a job waiting for her at my grandpa's company. And my grandparents loved my dad like he was their own. So they gave him a high up position working for the company as well. Now, in my opinion, I personally feel like moved way too fast after high school. But then again, especially back then, that was what you were supposed to do. You know, after high school, go to college, then find a job, then find a wife or a husband, then have kids, and then die, literally. And if you didn't go to college, you just skip that part. So it goes high school, wife or husband, kids, die. Anyways, so they ended up following these rules by the book because after high school, they got a job at my grandpa's company, and my grandpa also bought them their house. By the way, if this timeline seems a little bit off, it's because this is all shit that my mom and dad have told me, and I've kind of just pieced these parts together by myself. Anyway, so yeah, like I said, they had jobs with my grandfather, they had a house, and then fast forward to August, the best thing that ever could have happened to my parents happened, aka my mom got pregnant with me. As soon as I came into their picture, their lives got a million times better. Anyway, so sometime between August, aka when she found out that she was pregnant with me, and the time that I was born, Luna had moved back to the city, which we all should have saw this coming, to be honest. Anyway, so sis wasted no time. As soon as she landed, she went to my dad's grandmother's house asking where he was, and my grandma had told her, but she also mentioned like, hey, he's married now. He's happily married. If I didn't mention it earlier, my parents got married over the summer. But Luna gave no fucks. She showed up to my parents' house, and when she got there, my mom answered the door, and Luna and my mom didn't really know each other. So Luna ended up not telling my mom that she gave birth to my dad's kid, but I do know that Luna went off on my mom. She told my mom that she was a whore, and she said that my dad was just using her to get over what they had, and he's never gonna love my mom like he loved her. Oh, and the only reason why he pretends to love my mom is because of all the shit that she's given him, and he's also just using my mom for my family's money. As you could tell, Luna was mad as and also a bitter ass bitch. Like, girl, you need to leave my mom alone. She did not do shit to you. Which, I mean, I get it. You know, you would want the guy that you had been with for years to hopefully wait for you. But at the same time, girly, you left. Whether it was your choice or not, you cannot expect him to sit around and wait for you. Move on. As you guys can probably tell by now, I obviously hate Luna with a passion. You guys will eventually find out why, but in the meantime, no, I have no sympathy for this hoe. Anyway, so my mom never told my dad about this encounter that she had with Luna. My mom actually told Luna that if she doesn't stay away from my dad, she's gonna get her sent back to her country. I don't know if my mom actually could have did this, but I mean, hey, it scared Luna because it kept her away. My mom did not hear about her again. So fast forward, my mom pops me out, and then a year later, she has my brother Will. Now, growing up, I had a really good childhood. My mom and dad were super attentive to my brother and my brother and I have always been extremely close. Like, I treated him like he was my own child. You know how when you were younger, you would play with baby dolls and you would treat them like they're your own, you know, you'd walk around and like just have them with you 24/7? Yeah, that was me with Will. Anytime that I was invited to go anywhere, Will had to come with me. There were no ands, ifs, or buts about it. And everybody pretty much knew how overprotective I was of him because in school, if he was crying, the teachers would call me down to the classroom so that way I could go and talk to him. Oh, and if you even tried to bully him, let's just put it this way, very early on, and I'm talking like whenever he was in 2nd grade, it only took one situation for everyone to realize that you don't fuck with my little brother, because if you do, you're gonna have to deal with me. That situation being, there was this one girl who thought that it would be funny to, quote, play hide and seek with all the kids in school, including my brother. And by the way, we're just gonna call this girl Paris. Anyway, so instead of actually playing hide and go seek with my brother, she thought that it would be funny to tell him to go and hide somewhere, and because he was such a good hider, her and everyone else would go and try to find him. When in reality, my brother went to go and hide, and she and all the other kids in his grade, or okay, that's a little bit over dramatic, but her and majority of the kids went and played somewhere else, and it was sad. They literally had my brother hiding in some random spot for like 45 minutes straight. Well, when the teachers found him, they had called my parents because they thought that he just wanted to get out of doing schoolwork. And I'm not gonna lie, my brother was a little bit mischievous at times. So of course my parents believed the teachers and they grounded my brother. So when I got home that day from school, he's in his bedroom crying, and I asked him what happened, and he told me about how that girl had tricked him. And listen, I'm only a year older than my brother, okay? So I thought that it was acceptable for me to stick up for him in any way that I thought appropriate. So instead of going to school and like punching this girl in the face or something, I decided that I'm gonna embarrass her just like she embarrassed Will. But the worst part is, this girl and I were kind of good friends because she lived right down the street from us. But she knew that Will was my little brother, so I didn't care. She probably was just doing it to act cool in front of everybody. And I know you guys are probably thinking, well, Kaylee, couldn't you have just talked to her about this and told her not to pick on your little brother? Sure, I could have. I definitely could have. But hello, you are forgetting I was like 9 or 10 years old. Just talking about a situation was not enough for me. Okay, that seemed way too mature. Anyway, so my school would throw this winter festival on the last day of school before winter break. And this year it just so happened to be on a Friday. And that little stunt that she pulled was on Wednesday at that same week. And like I said, I decided that I was gonna embarrass her, and where better to do it than the winter festival where everyone in school is. Now, Will and I were good friends with a lot of the older kids in school, aka the 4th and 5th graders. But we were good friends with them because most of them lived in our cul-de-sac, and we would all always get together after school and play kickball or some other shit. And like I said earlier, Paris lived close to us as well, but Paris had an older brother who would come and play with us, but he never wanted Paris there because all the older kids were, quote, his friends. So Paris's parents wouldn't let her go with him. So we rarely ever played with her. Well, Paris just so happened to like one of the older kids, and his name was Gavin. So since she liked him, she would try to be anywhere that he was at all times. And since Will and I were friends with the older kids, I told them about what happened, and we all came up with a plan. And listen, I know this plan sounds super fucked up. You're gonna be like, what type of demonic 10-year-old were you? I didn't see the seriousness of what I did at the time, if that makes sense. But like I said, I was 9 or 10 years old. So we all decide that we are going to get a group together and read a holiday book. And of course, since Gavin wanted to read the book, so did she. Because we had other activities going on that she could have did, but like I said, she had this little obsession with Gavin, so this worked perfectly. And Paris couldn't read too well. Like I said, I know this sounds so fucked up, it really is. But she couldn't really read, and she had a really bad lisp. So it was kind of hard to understand her when she talked a little bit. But instead of having the teachers read the book, we asked if instead we could do popcorn reading. And the teachers were like, oh my goodness, yes, like, we're so happy you guys want to read. And we're like, yeah, we really want to read. We didn't, obviously. Y'all already know where this is going, most likely. But just in case you don't, everybody sits in a circle, and we had this book that we decided we were going to pass around to whoever got picked to read. And every time after one of us was done reading, we would pick Paris to read after us. So like it would be me, Paris, Will, Paris, Gavin, Paris. And to be honest, it was quite awful. She would like stutter and ask the teacher to help her with words. And while this was happening, we were all laughing and giggling and whispering and making fun of her. It was pretty bad. She actually got bullied throughout the rest of elementary school for not knowing how to read because of this situation. Like if you had class with Paris, you were calling on her to read just to be anyways, like I said, looking back at this now, I feel really bad for making fun of her for something that she couldn't control, but I'm not gonna beat myself up over it because it was in the past. What can I do except try to be a better citizen? No, but eventually she found out that I was the one who got everybody together to embarrass her. I mean, in all honesty, it wasn't a secret. On the bus ride home, she was crying about the whole situation, but I didn't care. I went over to her and I was like, see how it feels to be embarrassed? If you don't want it to happen again, you need to apologize to my brother, and you need to have your parents call my parents so that way my parents will unground him. So sis got up and walked over to my brother on the bus, and she apologized to him. And to my surprise, she actually did have her mom call my parents and tell them that it was not Will's fault. I mean, honestly, the only reason why I'm really surprised about this is because, listen, if you would have embarrassed me like that in front of the whole fucking school and then came up to me and demanded that I apologize, yeah, no. I would have told my parents that you were bullying me, and you would have been in even more trouble than you were in the first place. But you know what? She was a real one for that. Anyway, so you guys get the point. I'm super protective of my brother. So fast forward to middle school, which I'm going to explain real quick how my school works. Now, when you get into middle school, you meet a ton of different people because there were like 9 elementary schools in my school district, but there were only 2 middle schools. So these 2 middle schools would divide the elementary schools into 2 groups. So one middle school would get 4 of the elementary schools, and then the other middle school would get the remaining 5 elementary school kids. Now, our school district only had 1 high school, so after middle school, you were basically dumped into this sea of a fuck ton of kids. So as you can tell, I had a big ass full and class. Anyway, so fast forward, I start middle school, and then I meet this one girl who we are going to call Sherry. Now, Sherry and I had a ton in common. Both of our social statuses were pretty high, so not only did we have a lot in common, but it was only right that we became best friends because we both were popular. Like, we were the girls that everybody wanted to be friends with, and it wasn't because we had like some amazing personality. It was literally because we just had attention from pretty much all the boys in school. And like I said, we were just popular. There were other girls that were a part of our clique, but we were definitely at the top of the food chain. We were well liked, and also we were always the center of attention, but it was because we were always involved in some sort of drama. And when I say involved in drama, I'm not talking about, oh my goodness, she likes the same guy as me. No, I'm talking about always having some rumor about one of us or both of us going around like every week. Like, for example, the one time some girl sent her nudes around school from a fake Snapchat account saying that it was me. And then these 2 girls from my school decided to take a video of them making out, and they cropped their faces out and sent it around school saying that it was Sherry and I, and spreading rumors that Sherry and I actually were dating. And listen, this was back way before whenever you were considered a weirdo for being gay. Like, I feel like, you know, as time has went on, especially recently when TikTok started, you know, we've made some progress with the LGBTQ plus community, but this was not that time. So everybody was like, ew, you guys are gross, da 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 da. And then within an hour, everybody found out that it wasn't us and it was actually these two weirdos. So her, I guess. Anyways, it was just super overwhelming having some shit like this happen every single week. I think one of the worst things was whenever somebody had created these fake text messages to make it look like I was talking to this guy that Sherry liked. And it was kind of believable because this guy and I were really close friends. So Sherry was super mad at me for like the whole day until him and I both told her, like, listen, we are not talking like that. But people would do this just to get her and I to stop being friends. Probably because we were both bitches, especially whenever we were friends. But it didn't work. It was kind of funny though, because you know how I told you guys that I was always the one who was protecting my brother? Well, eventually he was able to, you know, protect himself. He didn't really need his big sister anymore. But because of how much I always had his back, anything that anybody would do to me, he was like ready to attack at any second. Like, for example, this one guy who just happened to be his best friend had asked me if I wanted to be his girlfriend, and I said no. And so he told the whole school that I gave him which obviously I did not. I love whenever you reject guys and they decide that they're going to make up like a bunch of lies about you. Like, we both know it isn't true. And to be honest, you just look pathetic. Anyways. But yeah, he had started this rumor that I gave him and so what did my brother do? Will went to school the next day and beat his ass. He got suspended, but he didn't care. He literally beat this kid's ass so bad. But that's what you get for messing with his sister, duh. And then if there was a girl who was bullying me, whew, I would not want to be her because listen, my brother was ruthless. He did not care. When it came to me, he was willing to do anything. So he would pretend to like these girls and, you know, Snapchat them for a few days, and then he would ask them to send him nudes and he would get their nudes and send them around school. You would think that like after the third or fourth girl, they would have learned. But my brother just so happened to be somebody that all the girls like even girls in the older grades liked my brother and they all thought he was so hot, which not in a weird way. My brother was good looking, but it was literally because puberty hit this kid like a fucking truck when he turned like 12 or 13. Like, he was one of those kids that looks 5 years older than they actually are. I had so many kids like that in my school. It was actually insane. Like, half the time you thought you were going to school with grown-ass men. Like, how do you look 25 when you were literally 16 years old? Anyway, so fast forward to 8th grade, Sherry introduces me to her cousin Adrian. Apparently Adrian had to move in with Sherry and Sherry's family because some things had been going on at her stepdad's house, but Adrian fit in pretty well with Sherry and I. And I'm not gonna lie, I was kind of jealous of her because she was way prettier than both of us. She had the perfect body, perfect hair, like literally perfect everything. It was actually kind of annoying having her hang out with us because she would take all the attention away from us and all the boys would pay attention to her instead. And don't get me wrong, Sherry and I were really pretty. Adrian was more of an exotic pretty. I don't really know how else to explain it, but anyway, so Adrian starts hanging out with us, and the one annoying thing was I wasn't allowed to hang out with Adrian outside of school. Like, Sherry and I were able to hang out outside of school if Sherry came to my house, but Adrian's mom was super strict and she wouldn't let her hang out with anybody outside of school because her mom thought that if she hung out with people outside of school, it would distract her from getting good grades. And yeah, I mean, later on I actually found out that none of that was true at all, and Adrian's mom actually just didn't like me. And I found this out because Adrian had taken a liking to Will, and one day whenever Sherry's mom dropped Sherry off at my house, she also picked Will up to take Will over to their house. And when I asked Sherry why he was allowed over there and I wasn't, she was like, oh, well, I don't know, Adrian said that they have a project to work on, which was super sus because one, you guys aren't even in the same grade, and two, y'all just so happen to have a project to work on together after you find out that you like each other. Okay, like, what a coincidence. Well, then after like 2 weeks, I asked my brother why I wasn't allowed over there, and he was like, oh, well, Adrian's mom low-key hates you, da-da-da, this and that, which is weird as hell for her to tell a child. Like, you are going to tell my own brother that you hate me. Like, what kind of grown adult has beef with a child? Go get some help. Anyway, so the next day I confront Adrian and I'm like, why have you been lying to me? And she's like, I don't know, my mom is just super weird and I didn't want to make you feel bad, but I'm gonna talk to her and ask her if you can come over and meet her and hopefully she'll change her mind about you. So I'm like, all right, whatever. But my whole thing is like, all right, which one of you is going home and talking shit on me to your mom? Because why else would your mom not like me? There's no reason for her not to like me. So fast forward, I go over to Sherry and Adrian's house, and when I met Adrian's mom, she had apologized for making me feel like she hated me even though she did hate me. I don't know why she's trying to be fake all of a sudden, but she was like, I'm sorry, like, I just get really scared. My daughter's been bullied by girls before, and I just didn't want that to be one of these situations. But after that day, Adrian's mom and I actually became super close. I was able to vent to her about a lot of things that I wasn't able to vent to my actual parents about. She was also telling me about how she was super happy that Will and Adrian were talking because he's such a sweet kid and she really thinks that they're gonna get married. So fast forward, the one day my parents are having a cookout, and Will invited Adrian and I invited Sherry, and my parents were the type of parents where they like to get to know my friends' parents because obviously they want to know whose house their kid is at every day, you know. Anyway, so fast forward, Sherry and Adrian's mom get to the house, and my mom was outside talking to some of our family members who had came, and my dad was in the kitchen prepping food to put on the grill. So, you know, we lead them into the kitchen and I go to introduce them to my dad, and as soon as my dad turned around, it was like a scene from a f***ing movie. Sherry's mom looked like she had seen a ghost, and Adrian's mom dropped the salad that she made for the cookout on the floor. Thankfully, it was in a Tupperware container. That's besides the point, getting off track. But that's when my dad's like, oh my god, Luna, you're alive. Yeah, I told y'all we have a lot to unpack in this story time, okay? I hope that all of you are keeping up, okay? I know sometimes it gets a little confusing. Just try your best. And then a few seconds later, Will walks back into the kitchen and he gives Adrian a kiss. And then my mom walks into the kitchen and things get even more awkward. It's not even like anybody said anything to make it awkward. It was just the presence and the tension in the room. You could literally cut it with a knife. Now, Adrian, Will, Sherry, and I are all super confused. And I look at my dad and my mom and I'm like, aren't you guys gonna introduce yourselves? And it had also completely slipped my mind that my dad had already said Luna's name earlier. So, you know, they introduced themselves, and then fast forward, we're all sitting outside at one of the tables and shit is still extremely awkward. Nobody can really figure out why though, but you know, we're all trying to make it as not awkward as possible. We're making small talk, or at least trying to, and then everybody gets to talking about birthdays, and Adrian says her birthday, and then my dad goes, wait a minute, how old did you say you were again? And she goes, oh, I'm 15, about to turn 16, which by the way, I don't think I mentioned it earlier, all of us are currently in high school now.
Like for part 2.